Now then, we're ready to add the base to the body. The base is made in just the same way as the body. Stitch the outline, the first colour on tearaway stabiliser, cover with wadding, trim, cover with fabric, stitch the quilting. And that's taken us to this stage. Now the alchemy begins, because we've got to do something a bit clever. The engineering for this comes in, it's a bit like when you would do this on a sewing machine. You would tack different points or pin different points around and then make the rest fit into the space. And the beauty of this is, I hope I have got the sequence in the right order so that when the hoop moves, the foot doesn't get caught in all of this spare fabric. So what I've got here this is one of the panels. I've marked that centre point, which had a little bit of stitching to mark it, with a bit of Sharpie so that you can see it. And I press the seams open, and I'm taking a pressed seam there up to the top. I'm holding it so that's the only bit that's there. That goes to the top in the middle, and the next colour we'll stitch just about 1 centimetre, not very much more, across there, and then we're going to be working in a clockwise direction. So there we go. Now the hoop will move so that the needle comes to this centre point on this side, and we will do the same, but now that we're looking at the bit where the little mark was, so we put that there. You can use the hoop centre marking, which is just there. You perhaps can't see that, to get it in the right place. Try and aim the stitching along the edge of the wadding if you possibly can, as near as you can. It doesn't matter if it's 1 millimetre or 2 out. It really doesn't. It isn't rocket science. We're not making an engine. So that just stitches there. Now, the hoop will go back, take the needle back to the top, because what we're going to do is stitch this curve, and what we have to do is just arrange this fabric, and if you just sort of squidge it, that's the best word I can think of, like that. I've carefully calculated the diameter of the base and the length of these sides so that can stitch without any tucks in it, I hope. So let's go. If you want to slow your machine down, that's not such a bad idea. If you can see it's going a bit wrong, you can stop the machine. But that's following that line out rather beautifully, and that's all I've done. Just squidge. So we've done strip and flip and squidge. Now it's going round to the bottom, so we've got to get the bottom seam into place, and that's here. Can't see that very well. You'll notice I don't sit down to sew, so sometimes I have to just do a bit of strange wiggling about to see what I'm doing. So here is my seam that I've pressed open, lined up with the centre point, and that's going to stitch across the bottom. Then it will go back up to the 3 o'clock position. Like that, so it hasn't got stuck in anywhere. And again, we just ease that fabric so that it makes a nice curve. You can have a look at the underneath if you like, but you don't really need to. It's engineering, but it isn't rocket science. So there we have that curve. These little bits here, where the strips were, do help it to ease in quite well. On the plain one, if you want to make the plain one, you might find it's a good idea to do a bit of snipping along there. So here we have this piece. It's going to be stitched round. There we go. And the hoop will now move to do the 9 o'clock position. So that stands up like that, you see. There we go. And the 9 o'clock position, we need this little bit of Sharpie. You might notice actually I'm hurrying a bit against the clock here because the daylight is fading, and I don't like to work by artificial light if I possibly can. So there's that central point. You probably can't see because of all this. That's going to come back to the 6 o'clock point. If your machine has the facility to lift the embroidery foot up a bit, it's quite helpful, but I don't think it's essential for this. So we've got to pull that out like that so that it makes a nice curve. Not quite so easy to do this one because the angle that you're working at's not so good, but that's about right. I haven't had this brother machine, well, I've had it for 2 years, but it's taken me quite a long time. I'm just going to stop that and make sure the rest's all right before I stitch it. It's taken me quite a long time to get used to the embroidery arm being on the left, because my previous machine, which I have still got actually, is a Janome where the embroidery arm attaches at the back, and it's great for ITH projects because you can see exactly what you're doing. Now, you might notice, look, that because I was talking and not concentrating terribly well, the last few stitches of that have gone offline. All I'm going to do is snip them. They're not tiny. It's a normal seam. Snip those like that. And just release that. The difficult bit is where it fastened off. I did a few stitches at the end. Release that, and I'm going to go back a few stitches and stitch that bit again. So I'm just going to go back about 20 stitches. There, you can see where it went slightly offline. Well, I've unpicked that and we've done it again. Now, all we've got left to do is the final curve, because we've stitched the top, and this one is the most difficult, and I'm going to look round the back for this one to get it in line. Just pull the fabric out a little to give me a nice curve, and then I think I'm going to risk stitching. You've seen how easy it is to unpick. I could almost pretend that that was a deliberate mistake, so I could show you how easy it would be. So there we are, we've stitched round there. Again, the line wasn't perfect, it was a couple of millimetres out in one or two places. Now you'll notice it's gone back to stitch at the top. That colour there I've just added so that it doesn't come back to the middle and get trapped in all of this. So we don't stitch that colour, we take the hoop out, and there we have our inside out bag, tub, cylinder, whatever you want to call it, ready to go. All I've got to do now is stitch this seam and turn it the right way around. Thank you for watching. I hope you're going to enjoy making this. And oops, I've just kicked the frame again.